Have you ever walked into a room and felt an immediate, prickling sensation that every pair of eyes just locked onto you? It is an exhausting way to move through the world. You constantly monitor your posture, calculate your words, and second-guess your facial expressions, burning massive amounts of mental energy trying to avoid a misstep. That fear of making a visible mistake forces us to navigate our daily routines like actors hitting marks on a stage, performing for an audience that never looks away. But if we pause and look at this logically, why does the human brain manufacture such intense paranoia, especially when the people around us are entirely preoccupied with their own lives? The answer starts with the biological limits of human consciousness. Every sensory experience you will ever have is trapped entirely behind your own eyes, operating strictly in the first person. Psychologists call the resulting worldview our self-centered bias. Because you are the undisputed main character of your own life, processing every event from your own vantage point, your brain naturally defaults to prioritizing your own actions. That intense internal hyperfocus creates a massive blind spot. We struggle to process the external reality, which is that everyone else is walking around in a state of relative indifference toward us. Our natural sensory perspective essentially creates a glitch in our social software. It tricks us into believing that because we are the center of our own universe, we must be the center of everyone else's too. Behavioral scientists have a specific name for this glitch: the spotlight effect. This chart shows the stark difference between our internal anxieties and objective reality. The spotlight effect is a persistent, massive overestimation of how much our appearance, our actions, and our daily errors are actually noticed by observers. Because we are situated front and center in our own minds, we mistakenly project that same level of importance onto the minds of everyone else. You think they are watching you, but they are actually projecting a spotlight squarely onto themselves. Understanding the theory is one thing, but to really see how poorly we calculate attention, we need to test this against the kind of uncomfortable social moments we all dread. It turns out our everyday social anxiety stems rarely from our actual physical or verbal flaws. It comes from a persistent mathematical error in how we calculate social perception. Let's say you are at work and you accidentally spill coffee down the front of your favorite shirt. Immediately, the internal panic sets in. You are absolutely convinced every coworker in the room is staring at the stain, silently judging your clumsiness. The objective reality? The vast majority of the office didn't even look up from their screens, and the few who did notice forgot about the incident within seconds. Or consider a meeting where you chime in and say something just a little bit awkward. You spend the next 10 minutes trapped in a spiraling thought loop, agonizing over the phrase and assuming the entire room thinks you are weird. Meanwhile, the rest of the people at that table are entirely consumed with anxiously rehearsing what they are going to say next. Finally, think about the time you decided to just stay home and skip a social event entirely. It is easy to assume the whole party spent the evening whispering about where you were and why you weren't there. The truth is, the music played, warm conversations happened, and nobody registered your absence. In every one of these embarrassing scenarios, the harsh, judgmental audience we fear so much is a complete illusion, generated entirely by our own self-centered bias. Realizing that people generally do not care about your actions can initially sting. It is perfectly normal if acknowledging this massive, worldwide indifference triggers a brief feeling of sadness or insignificance. But we can reframe how we look at human indifference. Instead of seeing it as a personal dismissal, we can recognize it as a highly effective, built-in psychological shield. Recognizing this transparency removes the weight of an imagined jury, giving you the room to move through your day without the constant fear of being judged. True relief comes from finally realizing that the blinding spotlight you've been sweating under your entire life was never actually plugged in. To put this into practice, here is a simple 3-step mental reset you can deploy the very next time that feeling of being watched takes hold. Step 1 is to remind yourself of the biology we discussed earlier. Every single person around you is fully occupied with being the main character of their own complicated story. Step 2 is to observe your own behavior. Notice how rarely you actually harbor harsh judgments against strangers for their minor mistakes, and intentionally extend that exact same grace to yourself. And step 3 is to consciously shift your mental energy away from the imagined audience. focusing strictly on the physical actions you are taking in the present moment. There is a real peaceful joy in simply blending into the background. If you found a bit of freedom in understanding how your mind works today, please hit the like button, subscribe, and share this video with someone who might need a break from the spotlight.